Okay, so from the film The Gift, we have the writer, director, and star Joel Edgerton, and the star Rebecca Hall.
I'll get my water. Hey, man. Thank you.
Well, I think I don't speak alone when I say that was a very chilling trailer right there. And so you've written movies before. This is not your first screenplay, but it's your first directing film.
Yeah, I've written two other screenplays. I co-wrote a screenplay called The Square, which my brother made in 2008. I wrote a film called Felony, which I produced last year. And this is my first writing, directing effort.
And what made the thriller genre the right one for your first foray?
Oh, look, I'm a real fan of thrillers.
Yeah.
I'm a real fan of Hitchcock movies, and lately I've become real obsessed with this filmmaker. Well, not obsessed, but I'm a real fan of Michael Haneke and films like Cache and Funny Games, which I found incredibly nihilistic and incredibly violent, but definitely unsettling suspense thrillers. I'm a big fan of them. As an actor, my taste is very kind of varied.
Yeah.
But this is the particular thing I love when it comes to writing. For some reason, like characters lying, deceiving each other. I don't know what it says about me, but.
So, I mean, were there any horror films that you went back and studied when you were looking at this movie? And did you have Rebecca check out some films that you were thinking of as far as the aesthetic?
I don't remember. Did we talk about references for movies? I mean,
I think you mentioned that you liked Michael Haneke, because I'm a huge Michael Haneke fan. I think I remember having that conversation with you.
Yeah.
But I don't think you told me to go and...
Yeah.
Hitchcock as well came up.
Oh.
Yeah, and I
Classic.
think that movie, the movie Cache, was really interesting litmus test in a way. And like as I was getting closer to making the movie, and what you see in the trailer is a very particular kind of sell for the movie, but the movie itself has, I don't want to almost give anything away. But
it's hard to talk about it because there's so much to give away.
It is hard to talk about, but it's a thriller, but yet it has a real social resonance to it. It's got a very suspenseful build to it, but to me it's a smarter movie, and it does make you feel frightened, but that's one part of the movie. One of the things I was really interested in is how you can unsettle an audience through real life characters that are not necessarily out to cause each other extreme violence.
Yeah.
Cache, I guess I keep bringing that movie up because in that movie, if you've seen it or if you care to see it, it really teaches you that what is very frightening is the thing that you don't see and the thing that you don't know.
Right.
Which is, I think, the anticipation of violence in the regular thriller is the thing that's actually making you unsettling is the moment before the character pops out from underneath the stairs.
Absolutely.
Because you don't know where they are and what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I feel like, Rebecca, I mean, what were you thinking when you were first reading the script when it was first sent to you? I mean, were you shocked at some of the turns and the twists in the screenplay?
Yes, I was. I suppose the setup of any smart thriller is that there will be twists and turns. So I don't know that I was, but none of them I saw coming.
Yeah.
But I think principally the thing that really surprised me and interested me was the fact that when I read it, the thing that leapt off the page was actually the fact that it's more of a domestic drama than it is anything else. It's sort of pretending to be a thriller, but actually there's a very human story at the root of it, and I think that's what makes it work.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, obviously, Jason Bateman couldn't be here, but he's fantastic in the movie. And obviously, can you speak at all talking about working with him and why Jason was the perfect guy for the role?
Oh, for me, we needed a character in Simon, the character of Simon, to, the thing about most of the thrillers that this movie kind of pretends to be, in a way, is the triangle thriller, the well-meaning couple, Rebecca and Jason, who move back to where he grew up, and the weird guy comes to besiege them. And we're sort of subverting and changing those roles within this movie. One foot is definitely planted in the genre, and the other one is trying to do something a little bit more interesting in our sense, for a modern context of this kind of movie. Jason has such a likable quality, and yet he's proved in his own movie, Bad Words, and other elements that he has the ability to make us. We really like Jason, but he can also play the jerk, and he's got a lot of darkness there as well. And I also like it when comedians take a trip into a more dramatic territory, and I think they prove time and time again that they can do a great job of that. So for all those reasons, he was kind of the perfect person to play the character, and he was really interested in doing something outside his usual thing, which is, to do a drama, to do something a little bit more darker as well.
Yeah. And Rebecca, how is it working with him and, playing spouse to Jason Bateman? And you can speak openly, obviously, because he's not here. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I can really throw him under a bus. Okay, let's go for it. Well, he's everything that you sort of expect him to be. I mean, he's an infinitely charming human being, and he's a very generous actor, and he's whippet smart, and that's it's about as much as you can hope for, really. I don't know. It was interesting because I suppose, it's always odd when you meet an actor and then you're immediately hours later kind of trying to imagine that you've been married to them for years.
Right.
And but this one was we had a luxury of having some rehearsal time, and we spoke about.
Oh, nice.
We spoke about the dynamics of the marriage, and it's not necessarily the most functional, happy one, which was kind of interesting to play. And that's. There's a lot of things that I don't want to talk about because I'm going to reveal too much.
I know, it's such a problem. But yeah, there are some unexpected laughs, I think, that Jason really comes home with and sort of takes you out of that really dark place for a couple moments in there. And there's a lot of great sort of dinner parties, situations and hangouts within the home. So
yeah, it's a bit hard to stop a guy that's that funny being funny.
Right.
But you have the power as a director when you've filmed a lot of Jason to just to really balance in the edit room how funny you let him be. And it actually kind of worked for us, given that the film goes to some pretty dark places, that in the front half of the movie to allow the film not to flag itself as being incredibly dark, but to just let normal life kind of happen, which means that sometimes he can be funny, and he definitely gives you lots of that.
Yeah. Well, there's a dinner scene that we're going to show right now that sort of shows the dynamic of everybody in the house.
I think if this is the clip I'm thinking about, it's early in the movie, and it's the first time that my character overstays his welcome and gets somewhat invited to dinner. I think
It's great. It's cool. So that clip sort of shows the character that you've developed for this as far as your own character. I think it's fascinating. I mean, some of us have seen your work in Warrior and know you as a very imposing figure, but in this movie you're sort of a more intellectual. I mean, there's more intellectually going on than there is in the...
Gordo as a character is... I wanted to set out to write a character who was overbearing and who wasn't really able to discern social boundaries and social hints, hence why I've invited myself or overstayed my welcome to dinner. But also someone with a little bit of unusual ideas who's also a little misunderstood and trapped in time. You'll notice that Jason's character is very uncomfortable around dinner, and you start to understand why.
Right.
But I think also in some respects early in the film, because he's faced with someone from his past, and this was one of the big ideas for the movie for me was, what if, I'm 22 years out of high school, and a lot of the people, they're very clear memories for me, but they're clear memories in their 16-year-old form or their 18-year-old form. Yeah. If one of those people tapped me on the shoulder today and were like, hey, remember me?
Yeah.
I'd be sitting there in the silence afterwards thinking, who is that person? And God, I hope I was a nice person,
Yeah. Did you base it off of any sort of past in your own high school experience, or?
No, just generally the idea of that as a concept. I think these days, with social media and, we can get the virtual tap on the shoulder any minute of any day from our past. But the idea of that happening in analog terms, the literal tap on the shoulder, You know, because you know we're talking about social context, social resonance for the film. It's a thriller, but it does sort of throw up these questions of who are we in our lives, who were we in school, and how does that shape who we become,
Right.
and are we that same person, or have we changed? And also, what are those roles that relate to the way we bully and are cruel to each other with words or with actions? And not only that, but how does that manifest in subtle ways in the context of a marriage, not just in terms of our past, you know? And those things there in that context are, in this film, coming back to haunt this character. And in terms of Rebecca's character, she's stuck in the middle of these two men, and she's the eyes and ears of the audiences, the discovery of who's telling the truth and what is the truth in general comes about.
Right. And Rebecca, we talked a little bit about working with Jason, but for a lot of this movie, you're very terrified by what's going on with Gordo. So, I mean, how was it working with Joel as he's directing you, and then also slipping into this sort of devious character? You're not exactly sure where he's coming from, what his motives are. How is it working like that?
It's very awkward to talk about it when he's right there.
Sorry. We can talk more about Jason. What's up with Jason?
No.
No, Joel's got there's a kind of remarkable confidence and ease that's totally self-effacing, which makes you feel very comfortable. So, and if any of those things weren't in place, the prospect of him wearing so many different hats simultaneously would have been awful.
Yeah.
But the fact that he can do that, it felt very reliable and comfortable. I mean, I do think that I have a certain amount of faith in actors turned director, not just because I've worked with one before, but also because every director that goes out into the world and directs a movie for the first time, on the whole, has no experience of ever watching another director work. And an actor gets first-hand experience of how directors work for their whole career. So there's a whole element of actually having a training school that a lot of directors don't get.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so I instinctively trust it.
Yeah, that brings up a good point. I mean, Joel, did you sort of take any tips or direction away from other people that you worked with in the past on sets?
It's called plagiarism. No, it's true. I think it's so true. I get to work with all these great directors, and I think you learn from everybody in life by experience, by the way they set an example of their social conduct, the way they collaborate with people, the skill they have, the preparation they take into their work. Any number of aspects to the technical craft, to their instinctive skill, to their personability, and you can cherry pick from all those things, good and bad, and that is a real luxury. You know, and I've seen very close friends and my brother make a movie. I've had the luxury of working with really interesting directors, and it is the case that you can learn from those people, and it's been lucky for me. And I think now, coming out the other end of it, I'm going to go to work as an actor on the next thing without any other responsibility, which I'm going to love, and I have an extra little pinch of respect for every aspect of that production, which I'm very happy for.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a lot of filmmakers out here and who listen to this podcast when it's put in the podcast form. So, was there one sort of tip that you've taken from a set that was very implemented in this filmmaking process, or?
Well, you get all the really interesting ones, which are like bring a spare pair of shoes and change shoes at lunchtime. They're actually really helpful tips. I mean, they are, and it really gives your feet like a little holiday.
Nice. Just
after lunch. But the one thing I learned was, and it's ironic that I'm learning this now, because as an actor I thought I knew a lot about actors. But at the time that I was sitting there just working with Jason and Rebecca, what I learned is just how incredibly good smart actors are at problem solving, and how it would be a shame to impose your will on a situation, meaning a scene, or a way of playing a scene, or an actor's kind of tracking of a character, without hearing what an actor or two actors together have to say first. because what if their idea is better? And if you stamp on that before they have an opportunity to have their voice, it's a real shame.
Yeah.
And then when their idea is better, you steal it. And you make it your own.
That's great advice.
It is actually, with all seriousness, I was just remarkable how often a solution that came from Rebecca or Jason or the two of them in discussion together was more exciting or a better or more efficient solution than what I had come to in my homework.
Yeah. And, the film is called The Gift. And, I'm just curious. I mean, there's a lot of things to be called. There's a lot of things at play in this movie. So how did The Gift become the title?
Initially, I'd called the movie Weirdo, which pertains to the nickname that my character had in high school. And, the movie is a lot about the names we call each other and the things we say to each other and about how those ideas can really bring us undone and how words have effect. And seeds that are planted do take root and can cause a downfall. So that made sense to me at the time. The gift pertains to a lot of things, not just the series of gifts that grow ever unsettling from me to the couple, but also those sort of ideas of the gift of forgiveness and the gift of friendship and other kind of more, ideas-based sort of connotations.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of the gift, I think we have another clip, so we'll get into that. Yeah, so that's a series of gifts that keeps on living on their doorstep, sort of as the thing escalates.
Yeah, Gordo, my character, is a very good listener, very attentive, and it seems that particularly anything that's of interest to Rebecca's character early on.
Right.
Well, in this case, she mentions that they have an empty koi pond and it would be nice for them to have some fish. And Gordo's of the ask and thou shalt receive mentality. And I was also very interested when I wrote the movie about social boundaries, about, if I give you a gift, it's up to you to kind of say thank you, and if you don't, it's a little bit weird, But they're little things. If you're on my Christmas mailing list and then next year I don't get a Christmas card from you, then you're off my mailing list. But on a macro level, like if you become my friend, that's an organic process. Now, if I visit you more often than you're inviting me, or if I'm giving you a lot of things and you're not giving them back, the imbalance of a friendship can often become very unsettling. Now, as lovers or within a marriage, we break up with each other. We need to use words, or at least an email, to break up with each other. When do we do that as friends?
Yeah.
We hope that the friendship just sails away if it doesn't serve us. So what if you actually had to break up with a person who thought they were better friends with you than you are with them?
Absolutely.
And also the kind of the cross-pollination of that, the thing of what if someone wants to be friends with you and you don't necessarily want to be friends with them, is trying to make friends with you. How is the polite way to get yourself out of that?
Especially if you live in the same town as somebody, you're going to run into them often, especially New York or Hollywood. They're both very small towns, when you're trying to get rid of a friendship like that.
Yeah, you've got to draw some lines in the sand. And in the context of our film, that becomes a darker prospect, given that the reason Gordo wants to befriend the couple is because there's a reconnection after 20 years, and there may be something more underneath it, whether or not the friendship can correct the old wounds. And if there's not a genuine show of friendship in return, then maybe something else is going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a couple dinner parties. There's another dinner party that goes pretty wrong, in this movie as per usual when, I'm talking about a thriller. So how was it sort of, writing that scene? Was that the conversations happening organically? Was that all scripted? It seems like you guys have a really good rapport. You and your couple friends, Jason and Rebecca's.
When the couples dissect the friendship.
Absolutely,
a lot of that was.
I don't know if you find this, but I mean, it's amazing how a group of friends can get together and solve the problems of the world, know. And we definitely have a scene in the movie where the neighborhood friends and the work colleagues all sort of dissect the nature of friendship and talk about a possible solution
Right.
of a conversation or a breakup. And we're constantly drawing the lines of this film into a domestic place, trying to scare an audience in the thriller aspect of the movie, and yet make us feel like this could happen to us. We all went to school. We all played a certain role. We all remember those kind of characters at school, but also make it domestic in terms of the relatability of where these characters live and what they do for a living, rather than make it about a place far, far away, or an alien descending from another planet, or a ghost living in your basement. To bring that fear or that unsettling feeling out of our own domestic lives.
Right. And there's another scene where sort of the scares start happening, I guess, technically. And how is it working in shooting those scenes, Rebecca? Are they actually terrifying when you're filming them? When there's glass breaking, things like that, things are happening around the house?
No, they're not. They're sort of exciting. I mean, they probably should be more terrifying. I think I've got a kind of blind trust about everything that happens on a movie set because it's a movie set and therefore I'm protected, which is actually probably often wrong. So I'm like, the glass is going to break.
You're excited about it. Blow the glass.
Yeah, I should put some shoes on. No, it's movies. But it's exciting. You have to act that stuff because everyone, there's more people on set than it looks, and someone's telling jokes in between, and of course you have to act that stuff. But I do think there is something intrinsically quite interesting about playing fear because your body doesn't really know any different. So your adrenaline function it does get a little bit kooky, I find.
Is there anything that you pull from, or when you're trying to act terrified?
I just look at Joel.
With that haircut? Yeah, exactly.
Just so scary.
I don't think it's one of the underrated things. There's 100%. A lot of people out there in horror movies that are kind of going through the ringer sometimes from at least 30 minutes into the movie until the very end, where they're running and screaming and sweating and bleeding.
You do that all day long. It might be 30 seconds in the movie, but you're doing that all day long.
And I think there's a lot of unsung heroes of those movies who don't get the kind of acting chops that they deserve.
Yeah.
But I mean,
there wasn't a lot of that in this. I mean, to be fair, there really wasn't. And most of it was thinking about the psychology of it, which was equally challenging, but perhaps more subtle in terms of how I was choosing to play it. Because it was about someone realizing that things that she thought were her safety and comfort are gradually not, and realizing that she doesn't know herself that well. So there was quite a big human journey to go on in this, and I didn't have to do an awful lot of screaming and running.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting how your own mind, the watcher's own mind, is their worst enemy in this film. That's kind of the great thing about the film, is this sort of underlying tone. And then you discover that you're completely wrong in all of your hypotheses.
Yeah, and that was always the trick, is the movies that that our movie reflects of Fatal Attraction and Cape Fear, and there's again, the triangle thrillers, we want to wrong foot the audience, because that's the job within that context of that thriller genre, is to make sure that nothing is really what it seems, and yet make sure that it's tethered to character and story in a way that feels real and not cheap. So that the characters are always questioning things. We're always watching Rebecca's character question her alliance and allegiance with her own instincts regarding these two men, her safety within the marriage as well as the safety within the confines of her own home. And that was the trick, is making sure that we don't walk down some old path with the movie, keep everybody guessing.
Yeah. Well, we have another clip here, I think, that sort of displays that a little bit. It's a fun one. Yeah, it's a lot of great scenes like that, and it's got a great couple different sides to it. And so, how's it like filming Jason doing that sort of thing? I mean, we talked about it a little bit before, but
you give him the dialogue, he takes it, and then he does it, and then every now and then he'll throw in little things. Like all of us. staying on the kind of right track, and then occasionally, you know, I don't know, there's something, there's a sort of a frequency that Jason operates at, that the most mundane thing coming out of his mouth, as said by, you know, 100,000 other people that would not be funny at all, just somehow makes you laugh. And it's on set, in front of the camera, and off in between takes as well. He brings a really great level of humour. And as I said, like in the edit room, it was up to us to determine how much of that we included in the film or took away. And it gave us actually a really nice balance to be able to kind of tune how much we like and trust his character in the beginning, because laughter always equates with likability, and you know, it gives you great access to a character. So, you know, we sort of included a certain amount, and when we felt like it tipped too much into comedy land, we could sort of dial it back.
It's awesome. And, you know, just to follow up on that real quickly, I mean, I feel like we talked about it a little bit before, but there's a point where he gets a little aggressive with your character, and you guys have to sort of duke it out, you know, not to give anything away, but how is it sort of, you never expect him to be the intimidating guy, but he has it in him when he needs to.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the great thing. Jason's got a lot of angles to him that you might not have seen in other movies. We have a kind of a scene where we get a little bit physical. He was worried. He thought he for some reason thought he wasn't going to be able to believably pull that stuff off. But it was really great. You know, like and really reminiscent of schoolyard bullying and
absolutely,
you know, like a high school cruelty about him, which he really kind of embraced.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, now we're going to throw it to you guys for some questions if you have them.
How's it going, guys?
Good,
I'm a huge fan of both you guys, so if it's okay, I have a question for both of you, and I'll butter you up both while I segue into them. Joel, we mentioned Warrior earlier, one of my favorite sports movies ever, and you're, you know, as you said, heroic and, you know, a good guy in it, to simplify it. But over the past few films, it seems like you've played villains and more cowardly characters, and you actually wrote this one. So, you know, I want to know, at what point in the writing process did you start picturing yourself in the role of Gordo? Did you ever see yourself maybe in the Bateman role? Because I know you could play both. And that's my question for you. And then Rebecca, you're one of my favorite actresses in the world. I was angry when you didn't get nominated for The Town. And you'd have this quality about you where we just instantly, within 10 minutes of a movie, we care what happens to you, which is perfect for a movie like this, where obviously shit happens to you.
And bad the other way.
And so you've worked with, you know, mainly unknown directors: Christopher Nolan, Ron Howard, Batman Affleck. And I would love to know, you know, from your perspective, working with all those great directors, I'm kidding, and now working with Joel, what does he have in common with them? If there's any characteristics that Joel has as a director that you can compare with some of the other great people you've worked with. All right, I'll let you both answer. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Do you want me to go first?
You go first.
Okay.
You had the first question.
Thank you. First of all, thank you. I wrote the film because I was, you know, as a writer, I'm always interested in creating jobs for myself, because no one used to give them to me, right? And to be honest, at the time that I wrote this, it was at a time where I still wasn't really sure. I was sort of waiting around, like waiting as in waiting in water, wondering what was going to happen next, and whether things would move in a tasteful direction with my career, or whether I'd be, you know, wondering about, you know, hoping to do interesting things. So I thought it'd be really interesting to play a character that was very overbearing, awkward, socially awkward, and yet misunderstood. And so, you know, the idea coupled with me playing this character, that was the intention for this film. I didn't intend to direct the movie. It was not until I'd finished writing a screenplay that I thought, oh, this could be a good first project for me. At some point I had toyed with playing the other character, only in order to get the movie financed, but then I was determined to stick with my instinct and play the other character.
Ready?
Yeah, I'm
ready. Good question. I think now the honest answer sounds somehow off, but let me explain it. I honestly think the thing that a great director shares with all the great directors that I've worked with, and I do count Joel as one in the making alongside all of those guys, actually, I really do. And he has this, is the ability to collaborate. Now, it sounds like that's a sort of like backhanded compliment or something to myself. I don't mean it like that. I just mean in the sense of someone who has the good sense to know that everyone is in this together, so best idea wins. And then from those ideas, have the good taste to pick the right one. Like that's what sets them apart. The egomaniacs that think they have all the answers never make the best films, and the great ones work with everybody else brilliantly.
Well, let me change the tone. So have either of you ever had anybody appear from your past? I don't mean like some fan, but I mean like somebody that you knew appear from your past that was either awkward or pleasant. And have you ever looked up or sought out anybody from your past that you were intrigued about? Or now that you've done this movie, now think about contacting or connecting with, and I don't mean just because of Facebook.
I 5 days ago got a message on Instagram, I think it was. Either Instagram or Twitter. I'm not prolific on either, but I do have both things. What would you call them? Accounts, yeah.
I don't know why I know.
Anyway, social media accounts.
Yeah.
So someone that I met on a member of a family that helped me when I had a big neck injury in Thailand on a beach when Y2K was supposed to happen, 99 to 2000, when all the planes were supposed to fall out of the sky and they didn't. I was really drunk because I was certain the world was going to end. And then I used to be a bit of an acrobat, and I ended up injuring myself really badly on the beach about 2 o'clock in the morning. And this family had helped me, a Thai family. And one of the members of that family found me on Instagram the other day. Is this really you? And so we've reconnected because of that.
Wow.
So that's a good story. I've never had the kind of terrifying tap on the shoulder yet. There's plenty of them coming.
No, I don't. I'm trying to think if there's anyone that I'd really like to. No, there's not.
Well, do you have any social media, Rebecca? So.
Am I on social media? No, not
Usually
really.
that's the way they do it.
I know.
So, yeah.
I might be a dodo. I really am not. I mean, I'm kind of I'm not. Yeah.
Well, that's the question, isn't it? Was that in that movie Birdman? Emma Stone's character says that you're not relevant if you're not on social media.
Yeah, I
Is
don't
that true?
exist.
Yeah,
Actually,
you don't.
Apparently, I don't exist.
I have a lot of respect for people when they're sort of, old school about things. I believe in the proper tap in the shoulder and the face-to-face conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I have a lot of respect for. I suppose I just find it tricky to imagine like having all those accounts and then being told by the people that I work for now you have to tweet things about the things that you're in.
Right.
Which, because surely I have the freedom to. But if I had it, then I,
Start tweeting.
Making things a lot easier.
Yeah.
Like it.
I wanted to know, how difficult was it for you to direct yourself? This is your first project, so I'm working on my first short film now, and I find it extremely difficult.
I was an incredible actor to work with.
Of course.
And an even better director. I loved working with myself as a director. I mean, look, it was tough, actually. I did wrestle with the idea of whether I would play the character as well, given that my initial impetus to make the story was that I would play Gordo and let someone else direct. When I finally decided to direct a movie, I guess part of my ego wouldn't let go of, the idea of playing the character. Also, I had a very clear idea of how he should be played, and it was hard for me to relinquish that. As I stepped closer to getting the movie made, I did have a list of actors that I was like, should I just go and try and hit up one of these people? And I didn't in the end. Day one of playing the character, I let these guys sort of work for 10 days or 12 days before I even got in front of the camera, just so I could try out this new experience of directing without it being convoluted, which was a good way of setting the schedule. But when I finally had to do it, I was terrified, and I felt like I'd made a mistake, because the first day I didn't feel like I could work out how to be inside of the whole thing with any kind of instinct that I usually approach work as an actor, while also then clicking into this, okay, and now, where's the camera going next and all that stuff.
It was a good thing that we liked him as a director, because if he'd showed up on that day, otherwise it would have been like, okay, now show us what you got.
Who else is on the list? Exactly.
So it wasn't easy to start with. I found my way, and I'm very happy that I did it. In fact, I'm very happy that I did both things. But maybe next time, I think, unless I had a really much longer schedule, I think I'd like to see what it's like just to direct a movie, and then I can have my day job, on another project. Not to say that other people haven't successfully done it, and someone with a different configuration of left brain, right brain may be excellent at it. I think Ben Affleck is doing a great job of, I don't know how he plays main characters in his movies and directs them, but the result has been marvellous. So far, Clint Eastwood's done such a great job of it. So I wouldn't say don't do it, but I'd definitely say if you think about making a movie, do it. The sooner you get started, the better, and set a date and get cracking, because it's exciting.
Yeah, very cool.
Hi, so my question is more on the commercial side. So who did you pitch the film the first time to, and when did you know this is going to happen?
I pitched the film. It was a sort of an interesting process. I wrote the film. I got a producing partner. Nobody owned the material but me and my producing partner. We were working together. And we sent it out to people, and we got a few nibbles, but I never felt like anybody was confident with the script and the material to say, I trust you. A lot of it was about trust as a filmmaker, and I think people will felt like they trusted me as an actor, but handing me the reins to direct a movie, I think there's actors and there's a general reticence because, Rebecca's a rare example of someone who finds it exciting to trust an actor who's about to direct a movie. There are a lot of people who won't trust that experience. Jason Blum came on board, and then STX came on board as a partner. Jason was very confident reading the script. He's someone who knows exactly what he wants, and he's very true to his word. The film wasn't his usual blood splatter horror movie, but he found something within it, somewhere between Whiplash and Insidious, that he thought was intriguing, and he very straight up said to me, I will let you make the movie that you want to make. I won't get in your way. I'll just provide the opportunity for you to do it. And he never wavered from that. So I didn't have a ton of partners leading up to it. And Blumhouse wasn't the first company that I thought of, but my producer was running point on all that stuff while I was still working away on the script. So thankfully she had an open mind to that, because I now really love Jason Blum. I think that he's one of the most honest filmmaker producers that I've ever worked with. He never lied to me. He never deceived me in any way. I never felt like there were any... And, unfortunately, producers sometimes get a bad rap because they're entrepreneurs. So they've got to kind of, rob Peter to pay Paul sometimes, and that can be perceived as dishonesty. Jason was very straight up. And you'll see a lot of great things out of the company STX, the new studio who came to finance the movie, who are, again, wonderful partners. I can't believe I had such a smooth ride shooting and making this movie.
Yeah. Great. Well, Blumhouse is doing some great stuff, so I'm sure you guys are in good hands with them.
Yeah.
And the movie's called The Gift. And where can people see it, and when will...
August 7, we're going wide release at cinemas near you. And you. I don't know. That's what they say, isn't it? It's out of cinema near
Well,
you.
tweet about it. It's Gift Film, at Gift Film on Twitter. So shout it out.
Gift Film or at Gift Movie? Gift Movie.
Gift Movie.
Tweet,
okay.
Instagram, invent a social media platform, and then talk about it on that even.
Give the gift, something like that.
Yeah.
Hashtag Give the Gift. Here we go. Thanks so much, Joel Edgerton, Rebecca Hall. So fantastic.